Several years ago, we attempted to help a family whose young teen was being ruthlessly targeted online for digital peer aggression, or what many call cyberbullying. Through our investigations, we were able to identify a suspect who we knew was using their cell phone to target this teen, as well as many others. We were also able to identify the mobile internet service provider that they were using, and when we connected with this mobile internet service provider, we notified them that one of their customers was clearly violating their terms of service. And when we repeatedly asked who we could report this to, we heard nothing. Darren with the White Hatter, and for several years now, many of us digital literacy and internet safety advocates have been speaking about how social media vendors such as Instagram, Snapchat, and many of the other larger social media platforms like YouTube and TikTok and the other popular teen apps need to be held more accountable for allowing their platforms to become breeding grounds for issues such as cyberbullying, sextortion, online predation, exploitation, and the distribution of child sexual abuse material, what's commonly known as CSAM. To date, we've left it up to these platforms to police these issues themselves, but time and time again, they have taken very little action, or the action that they have taken is nothing more than window dressing from a public relations perspective. But it is time we shine a light on another group of technology vendors that we believe deserve just as much attention as these social media platforms and apps, the internet service providers, commonly referenced or referred to as ISPs. ISPs allow a social media platform like Instagram or TikTok to deliver their product to the end user, the person using a cell phone or the computer. Using the analogy of a car, if a gas tank is the social media vendor and the engine is the user, then the ISP is the gas line that delivers the gas, the product, to the engine, the end user, or the person. We decided to do some background research on these three major mobile ISPs here in Canada, being Bell, TELUS, and Rogers. Remember, most teens have transitioned to cell phones as their primary access device when it comes to the internet. We were impressed to learn that all three of these mobile ISPs had terms of service, commonly known as TOS, that clearly outlined that the use of their networks for the purposes of transmitting less than desirable content such as cyberbullying or sextortion was clearly prohibited and could in fact be a violation of their terms of service, which could void a user's contract. We next started to do some research to find any incidences where one or more of these Canadian mobile ISPs enforced their own terms of service specific to cyberbullying or sextortion, but we were unable to locate any information online or in the public domain to show such enforcement. As a result, we decided to contact all three ISPs via their social media accounts on Twitter and via email. On August 17, 2022, we sent the following tweets to Bell, TELUS, and Rogers. Quote, "How do you enforce your own terms of service that are clearly being breached by some of your customers when it comes to issues such as cyberbullying or sextortion? Can you provide examples of such enforcement and stats on such enforcement?" After 24 hours of no reply to this tweet, we then posted a follow-up tweet on August 18, 2022 that stated, and I quote, "Bell, TELUS, Rogers, I posted the above questions 24 hours ago and I still haven't heard anything. The new school year is about to start, so I wish to inform students and families accordingly." End quote. We still have had no reply from Bell, TELUS, or Rogers, even though their Twitter accounts have been extremely active with other postings. Given that we had no reply using Twitter, on August 19th, 2022, we decided to send the following email to all three ISPs, including their customer relations email address, their customer digital protection email address, their internet support email address, and lastly to the report abuse email address. And I quote, "Good morning. I'm doing research on internet service providers and their terms of service, and I'm hoping someone from your company can answer these questions specific to your terms of service. Number one, your terms of service state it is a breach of service if the client uses your service to conduct illegal activity. Does your company enforce these terms? If so, how? Number two, how many copyright violation notices and notice statements were sent to your clients in 2021? Number three, how many customer services have been terminated in 2021 due to breaches of terms of service? Number four, how many customer services have been terminated in 2021 due to copyright or intellectual property right violations? Number five, how many customer services have been terminated in 2021 due to illegal activity as defined in your terms of service? Number six, how many customer services have been corrective, punitive, or disciplinary action in 2021 taken due to a breach of terms of service? Number 7, how many customer services have had corrective, punitive, or disciplinary action in 2021 due to copyright or intellectual property right violations? And number 8, how many customer services had corrective, punitive, or disciplinary action in 2021 due to illegal activity as defined in your terms of service in 2021? Looking forward to your reply. End of quote. Well, it's been about 5 weeks since we sent this email, and we've had no reply from Bell, TELUS in response to our question. However, we did receive the following email from Rogers, and I quote, "We apologize, but this is not something abuse@rogers.com can assist with," end quote. Of interest, this email did not offer any recommendation to whom we could contact in their organization who could answer the questions that we sent them. As a result of our research and inquiries and the lack of any kind of acknowledgement or feedback from these 3 internet service providers, several questions started to percolate in our mind. Number 1, why have we heard nothing from these 3 major internet service providers? We can't answer this question, only they can. Number 2, are these internet service providers actually enforcing their terms of service specific to cyberbullying and sextortion? Again, we can't answer this question without hearing directly from these ISPs. However, based upon our research in the public domain, we can't find any evidence to support that they are enforcing their terms of service specific to cyberbullying and sextortion. Number 3, is there any kind of external oversight agency or organization that consumers can turn to when an internet service provider is not enforcing their terms of service? Based upon our research, the answer to this question is no. We actually contacted the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunication Commission, commonly known as the CRTC, and asked them if they had the power to ensure that an ISP was enforcing their own terms of service. The CRTC, unlike the ISPs, did respond back to us very quickly, and they stated, and I quote, "The regulations that come from the CRTC through the Internet Code covers mostly issues that are related to billing and if the service is working properly." In other words, the CRTC has no enforcement powers specific to an ISP's enforcing their own terms of service. None. Now, we must acknowledge that these 3 internet service providers do have education and prevention programs, especially TELUS, specific to youth social media safety and digital literacy, including on the topics of cyberbullying and sexting. Bell Let's Talk supports development of anti-bullying resources, and some also donate money to several not-for-profit anti-bullying organizations here in Canada. However, there is a clear disconnect when an internet service provider promotes digital literacy and internet safety, but don't appear to be enforcing a breach of their own code of conduct and terms of service when a customer weaponizes a mobile internet service provider for the purpose of cyberbullying or sexting. These internet providers have put in resources to get people to report cybercrime, speak up, or improve their digital literacy skills. However, what actions are these internet service providers taking to prevent abuse on their network that they have responsibility over? We are not really seeing much here at the White Hatter. Now, these internet service providers may say these are criminal matters that need to be dealt with by the police and not us, and we would agree with such a statement. However, these breaches are still a clear violation of their terms of service, so why are they not also taking action? If it takes a village to deal with these issues, aren't internet service providers a part of that village? Also, some forms of cyberbullying are not criminal in nature, so police involvement is irrelevant. But yet the cyberbullying by their customers' actions still meet the criteria as a violation of their terms of service. By not enforcing their own terms of service, do they not become complicit and a part of the problem? Without consequences to actions, is an internet service provider willfully allowing their service to be used by a customer as a weapon to continually and relentlessly target others? Criminal investigations and internal investigations can simultaneously occur. It happens all over the world. Someone might be charged with a crime and then lose their job. It happens. So who has the power to ensure that an internet service provider is enforcing their terms of service? The answer, only the internet service providers themselves. However, it appears based upon all the information mentioned that internet service providers, much like social media vendors, are inherently resistant to enforcing their terms of service specific to cyberbullying and sextortion. Could it be that self-enforcement could mean the loss of a customer, which means lost revenue? I don't know. That's a question that needs to be answered. Considering that all 3 internet service providers mentioned are multi-billion-dollar companies, we would suggest that such enforcement would be an extremely small financial loss. Perhaps it could be a cost factor of staff to investigate and then enact enforcement as a cost savings effort to not enforce the terms of service. So how could an internet service provider enforce their terms of service? Here are some thoughts that we have here at the White Hatter. Have a specific department unit that will be dedicated to enforcing a terms of service. All three internet service providers had an abuse email reporting function, so why not use it for the terms of service violations as well? Create a gating process that outlines who can submit a report, such as the police, a school principal or a counselor, or the mobile account owner themselves. Also, clearly outline what needs to be included in the report, such as a screen capture of the content that breaches the terms of service, as well as the account owner's name, cell phone number, and the IP address if able. If the report passes the gating process, then consider an incremental consequences to action approach, such as number 1, a warning letter, email, text should be sent to the owner of the phone. In most cases, given that teens will likely have a device whose phone service and data text plan contract was signed by the parent, in all likelihood, the parent will receive the notification. We actually think this is a good idea, given that most parents will be unaware that their child is using their phone inappropriately, thus creating an opportunity for the family dialogue on the use and misuse of their child's phone. Number 2, if after the first warning notice the terms of service violation continues, cancel the owner's ability to use data text for a short time, longer in multiple violations, but still allow the phone user the ability to talk on the phone. This will still allow parents to connect and communicate with their child when needed, or for the owner to still talk to a friend or to contact 911 if needed. Again, these are only some of the thoughts that we are sure there are others out there as well that we've not really considered. Such a process will take time, effort, and investment on the part of an internet service provider. However, these three ISPs and many others are multi-billion-dollar companies, so isn't the investment of self-enforcement important when it comes to our kids' emotional, psychological, physical, and social well-being? As mentioned earlier, by not enforcing their own terms of service, do they not become a part of the problem? Now, in conclusion, yes, parents, schools, police, and teens have a part to play in dealing with issues surrounding the use of technology for the purposes of cyberbullying and sextortion. However, we believe that both social media vendors and the internet service providers also have a significant role to play, but have been willfully blind specific to their participation, often hiding behind the safe harbor legislation like the Canadian United States-Mexico Agreement here in Canada, or Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act in the United States. Both of these pieces of legislation provide immunity to online platforms and internet service providers from civil liability based upon third-party content and for the removal of content in certain circumstances. Using the earlier analogy of a car, does it not make sense to pinch the ISP gas line specific to customers who use and weaponize their service to target others online that are clear violations of their own terms of service? We believe it is. But to make this happen, there needs to be enforceable legislation in place that places a significant financial consequence when an internet service provider is willfully blind to their own terms of service. We, the people, need to be speaking out to government leaders and asking them to create the legislation needed to hold social media vendors and internet service providers accountable. This is what Australia has done with their e-Safety Commissioner Office, as well as the state of California. Recently, the e-Safety Commissioner in Australia announced that there are draft mandatory industry codes coming shortly, which will seek to address the roles and interventions across 8 subsectors of the tech industry, including internet service providers. However, this will be a significant challenge given that here in Canada, we don't have a dedicated e-Safety Commissioner. The California Age-Appropriate Design Code Act that takes effect in 2024 has language that will make large tech companies in California, so all the big ones, and I quote, enforce published terms, policies, and community standards established by the business, including but not limited to privacy policies and those concerning children. Will this new law be effective? Time will tell, but tech company lawyers are smart and perhaps a terms of service will change to create a new escape clause to bypass direct responsibility. The collective wealth and power that social media platforms and ISPs have to lobby the government to meet their corporate financial benefit rather than the needs of the general public who depend upon their services in our daily lives will continue to be the lay of the digital land here in Canada until we have an independent government watchdog to hold them accountable. We here at the White Hatter will continue to address this clear weakness to the overall safety, security, and privacy of the internet user when it comes to internet services providers who have the power to address abuse on their social networks here in Canada. Social networks are not perfect and need to do a lot more, but at least they're doing and enforcing something to protect their users and prevent criminal activity. Can the same be said about internet service providers? Thank you for taking the time to listen to our concerns and maybe message your ISP to ask them if they will protect you by enforcing their terms of service. If you like the video and think more needs to be done, like and share it so more people can become aware of these problems. And maybe if we make enough noise, internet service providers will finally open up about what they're doing, if anything. I'm Darren from the White Hatter, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.